Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, or night, depending on when you are watching this. The purpose of this video is to provide a brief introduction to the Snap user interface. We're not going to get too deep in this video, just give you a brief idea of how Snap works, sort of the very, very basic information. To help you follow along, go ahead and, if you haven't already, gone to snap.berkeley.edu and scroll down to where it says Run Snap Now. So here we have the Snap screen, and there are a couple of different areas here. On the top right, we have what's known as the stage, and the stage shows one or more sprites. So a sprite is a character of some sort that can move across the stage, and we control its behavior programmatically. Beneath the stage, we have our sprite corral, and that's where we actually create the sprites that we want to use. Right now we just have one sprite, but it's possible by clicking on this button here to create sprites as well as paint a new one if we feel so inclined. I'm just going to leave one sprite there because that's all we need for now. And then we also have an icon representing the stage. To the left of this, in the middle, we have this large area which is the scripting area. And it's here where we're going to write these little scripts, these little programs that are going to tell the sprite what to do. In addition to scripts, we also have tabs for costumes and sounds. And so when we select one of these tabs, they are going to apply to whatever sprite has been selected. So for instance, I am now going to go ahead and add a second sprite and then a third. So you can see we've got a gray, red, and blue sprite. And if I were to select, say, the red sprite, sprite 2, then when I go over here to scripts, whatever I place here is going to apply to script number 2. Of course, I can rename these sprites. So here I've got something called sprite. I could rename it here as, for example, gray sprite, if I felt so inclined. And sprite 2, of course, I could call red sprite. The idea here is to provide names that are meaningful. And because I'm sort of obsessed with detail, I'm going to call this blue sprite. There we go. So I've got my blue, gray, and red sprite. On the left side of the screen, we have a number of what are called palettes. There are 8 different palettes, and in the palettes, we have a number of different blocks. And the way that Snap works is we take these blocks, and in order to make them have an effect, we drag them over to the script area. So for instance, I'm going to take this script, this block that says move 10 steps, and drag it over to the script area. Now because the blue sprite has been selected, what happens here is going to apply only to that blue sprite. And just to make things interesting, I'm going to go ahead and have my sprite move and then turn. Let's do that in slow motion. So you notice I brought this over from here, and then when I brought the second block close to the first, a white bar appeared. And when I let go, the two of them snap together. You don't actually hear an audio snap, but in fact they do snap together. And that means that my script now consists of 2 blocks. And I can execute the script in a number of ways. The conventional way is to go to what's called the control palette and choose a block that says when green flag clicked. And this is called a hat block, by the way, for reasons that will become clear in another video. But the essence of this is that when I click on this green flag over here, my sprite moves and turns, moves and turns, moves and turns. If I want, I can actually drag this over here. It's not quite as much fun, but I do have the ability to do that. And so now I have a little script that I've written. Obviously, as you can see here, there are, as I mentioned, 8 different palettes, and the blocks in each palette are relevant and described by the name. So for instance, if I'm interested in sounds, if I click on the sound palette, then I have blocks that relate to sound. So for instance, I'm going to drag this over here, and now when I click, you may have heard that depending on whether or not my screen flow is picking up audio, but in fact my sprite moved, turned, and then played a note. The final area of the Snap user interface is the toolbar, and that simply consists of a couple of different menus here. And so I have one here that relates to the project as a whole. I have the ability to import various things if I need them, and we'll talk about that later. There's a cloud menu, so we can take some of these projects and store them on the cloud if we feel so inclined. And finally, we have the ability to change the size of the blocks, to change the size of the stage, and do a few other things that probably we're not going to worry too much about. So that ends the overall tour of the Snap user interface. I'm trying to keep these videos short, so join me in the next video where we're going to do something exciting with blocks. See you then.